The announcement that this session is being recorded. It will be uploaded to YouTube by Dan Cortese. He's my a technical guru. And I will send that video out to, that video link out to everybody probably sometime tomorrow when I get it from him. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking or asking a question. And if you do have questions or comments, everybody check the chat room from time to time. There's a lot of good stuff that comes in there. And Matt, I have a question for you. And that is, how do you want to handle questions as they come up or at the end, or what's your pleasure?
Yeah, it's preference to, we can take them as we go. That's fine. The only thing, if you don't mind, Marilyn, if you can monitor the chat for me, when I pull up my presentation, I can't see everybody. So if people are raising their hands or something like that, if you could just monitor that for me. But yeah, I don't have a problem stopping. Your question might be relative at the time and maybe not relative at the end. So I'm fine with that.
Okay. And I also want to introduce two past district governors with us this evening. Barry Valdez, I think he's in there a showroom with is that a Corvette? No, that's something else. What is that, Barry?
It's a Corvette, the one that's sitting in my garage.
It's in your garage.
Yeah.
Oh man, eat our hearts out, people. Is that your car, Barry, right?
Yeah, that's my post-district governor release.
That's your reward, right? Yeah. And Rudy Westerveld. Rudy is a past district governor, and we have a very nice photo of him there. I'm sure he's, I don't know, maybe he's out getting his vet warmed up too, or his Porsche, or whatever it is that past district governor guys have.
Oh, Subaru for the mountains.
No, he has this beautiful lake background as his backdrop many times. All right, so with that, please, Matthew, go ahead and start your presentation.
Yeah, Marilyn failed to mention she's also a past district governor, so thank you for your service, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
Okay, so for those of you that do not know me, my name is Matthew Smith. I'm with the Temecula New Gen Rotary Club. If you've heard this presentation before, hopefully it's just going to be a refresher. I went through all the training this past year through RI, and a lot of the same information was reiterated. And so it is good information. It's always good to refresh it, but it's also good to take it to your clubs and pass on the information. Even though you might know it, you always want to pass it on to your clubs. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my slide presentation over a couple of things on there. I did put the new live scan form in the chat. So for those of you that want to pull it down out of the chat, you can. Please give this to any Rotarians that are looking to get live scanned. Also non-Rotarians, if you have volunteers that are consistent volunteers with you guys, please have them get live scanned as well. It doesn't hurt if they're going to be working with the youth. This live scan form has changed. It's actually 4 pages. The old one used to be 1 page. This one has several releases and several disclosures that go along with the live scan process. So it is a new live scan form. So if you have an old one on file, please download this one, get rid of the old one. They're only accepting this form. And so when you do send somebody to get live scanned, they request that you bring the form. They do not provide the form. So this has our district information on it, has our district number on it, and you need to provide the person all 4 pages and let them take the proper pages to the live scan institute that's going to do their fingerprinting. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my slideshow. It has my phone number on it. It has my email address on there. If I can help you guys, support you guys, do anything through Rotary or in general, please let me know. I'm here to support you guys, support our district, and support fellow Rotarians. So let's go ahead and see how technology is going to treat us. All right, can everybody see my screen? I can't hear you. Marilyn, can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, perfect.
It's
Okay.
perfect, full screen and everything.
There we go. Awesome. I love when a plan works out. So this is our official youth protection training for District 5330. A lot of this is the same information that is in our youth protection policy. And so this is the overview of that. It does go a little bit more in depth, and we'll go through that as well. So common questions I get. So I just want to cover some of these. People always ask these questions in regards to the live scan aspect. If I was live scanned with another agency, school, nonprofit, do I need to be live scanned again? The answer to that is yes, because each live scan you do has a specific number that gets tied to your name. And if you were live scanned with the local school district, they are not going to pass on the information if something gets reported to them. So each individual live scan goes to that nonprofit specifically. So that being said, Rotary in general is a large organization, but our district is its own district, has its own live scan number. So even if you were in Rotary in another district, when you come to this district, you need to be live scanned again if you're going to be working with the youth. So also, I will say this, if you change clubs or you are in charge of people in your club and they have come from another club, please reach out to me or have them reach out to me and let me know that they have changed clubs, because sometimes people don't tell me. And every year I go through the file and I get rid of people that are not on the roster on DAC-DB. And so if you used to be part of, let's say, Temecula Noon Club, and you have come to Temecula New Gen Club, and you're no longer on the Temecula Noon roster, your live scan may get passed into the trash and you may have to get live scanned again. So please just try to help me keep the files straight as far as that goes. The next question I get is, how long does my live scan last? Live scans are always active unless I, as the youth protection officer, fill out a form saying I am no longer interested. So if you've been a Rotarian for 20 years, you've been live scanned for 8 years, as long as you have not left Rotary and I have not gotten rid of your live scan for some reason, then it'll still be on file and it is still active. I always am getting notifications from long time ago Rotarians that were live scanned with our district number and they're no longer Rotarians. And so I fill out a no longer interested form. So you don't have to get live scanned every year. Live scan, just so you know, is a background check through the Department of Justice. We do not run it through the FBI, and it checks your background on specific areas that Rotary is interested in. So it doesn't check your whole background history. It doesn't go from the time you were born, current. One example I can tell you is people have come to me and said, I got a DUI 25 years ago, and I'm afraid it's going to show up on my live scan. I want to let you know ahead of time. And so, well, thank you for being honest, but it's only the last 10 years that it checks for that type of infraction. So I don't make the rules. That's how it works. But just so you know, as much information I can give you as possible. I want to make sure everyone's as informed as possible. So the next question is, how do I get the proper live scan? How do I get the proper form for live scan? That's why I included that in the chat. So you have it. It's the new one, 2021. And so you have it. It's the most current and updated one. Some people will call me and say there's no billing number for the district on this form. As a nonprofit, the Department of Justice does not charge us to run the background check. So when you go to get live scanned and you get charged, that is the fee from the entity or the person doing your live scan fingerprinting. So if you're paying $25 to the police department, it's going to their budget, it's going to their bottom line. It's not going to Department of Justice. So sometimes people get wrapped around the axle and they don't understand that process. And so they require it before they will run the live scan. Reach out to me, call me, text me, email me, and I can send you the billing number. I don't like sending that billing number out because if somebody else gets a hold of it and they're not a nonprofit, then they could possibly charge us. And so I don't want that to happen. So then the question comes up to who pays for the money for the live scan when you go to get it done. So if you go to the police department, who's paying that $15 or $25? Each club is different. Each club has a different policy for that. Every club that I have talked to and come across and trained with, they all have a policy, but they're all different. And what I mean by that is, for instance, my club, the Temecula New Gen Club, we haven't always had a ton of money when we first started. And so we asked the Rotarian to pay for it. And so the Rotarian would go down, get live scan, they'd pay for it, and then the results would come back to the person in charge. In this case, it'd be me. So I've heard of other clubs that reimburse their members. They ask their members to pay for it, and then they get reimbursed. And then I've also had clubs that will invite a mobile person to come to their club, and then the club will write the mobile person a check for the 6 or 8 people that they live scan that day. So hopefully that answers a couple of your questions. As far as
Matt, let me make sure Michelle Nobleman got her question answered.
Yeah,
If
go
it's
for it.
4 or 5 years since you've done it, you already covered that. So Michelle, you got your answer, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. So a couple of facts. Just these are facts that I want to make sure everyone realizes. Our district has a youth protection policy, and I'm happy to come and talk to your club about that. I can also send it to you if you want to actually see the policy. And that's specific to our district. In regards to live scans, this has changed just a little bit in the fact that you used to get live scan, it would come to us in an email, I would print it and I would put it in a folder at my house under lock and key. Now it comes to us electronically. I have access to a database on the Department of Justice website, but I also print them and put them in a filing cabinet and lock it just in case something happens. You never know with the good old World Wide Web, things happen. So I do print them, but they're also stored in a database for our district with our number. So they are under lock and key. I'm the only one that has access to them unless, you know, a district governor or somebody asks me for it, and then I will send them a copy, but I redact the personal information because they don't need social security number, things of that nature. So, but I do have those. My wife is also a Rotarian, for those of you that don't know, but even she does not have access to those. It's none of her business, and it's very personal. So I leave that under lock and key in my office. So we answer this question, but if you've ever been live scanned with our district and never left, I should still have your live scan on file. Another question people ask is, you know, how do I know if I have a live scan still on file? So you can email me, youthprotectionofficer@gmail.com, and I will be happy to confirm that or deny that you do have a live scan on file. Just say, hey, I'm wondering, do you have one on file? I can't remember if I've done it or it's been a long time. Just, I want to make sure. No problem. Just let me know. Shoot me an email. I'll take care of it. And then if you want to know who in your club has been live scanned, please send me an email request and I will either use the DACDB roster or you can provide me with a roster if your roster is not up to date on DACDB. I think most clubs nowadays are on DACDB. So I usually use that roster, but if you have a different roster, then provide that to me and I'll look it up. I will provide you with a yes or no answer list. I do not provide you with a copy of all the live scans. So hopefully that makes sense. But that is a good way to see how your club's doing and if you guys have activities, who's live scanned and who is not. So an overview, in this course, we will explain Rotary's definitions of abuse, harassment, talk about how to recognize and address signs of both. No organization, not even Rotary, is immune to risks in regards to youth safety. We are a large organization. There's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. Unfortunately, things happen. There are multiple stories that I could tell you offline in regards to Rotary and inappropriate behavior, unfortunately, but it does happen. So I don't want you to turn a blind eye to Rotarians are great people, I agree, but sometimes not all of them have the best interest in mind. So everyone must follow Rotary Youth Protection policies. We want to talk openly on how these issues affect our programs and our communities. We reaffirm our commitment to creating a safe and inclusive environment for all, especially young people, okay? Rotary's policies are designed to prevent and respond to abuse and harassment and to manage risk across every country and culture. All clubs and districts are required to follow the policies. That means not only keeping the environment physically safe, but also promoting effective risk management procedures, cooperative volunteer attitudes, and an ethical organizational culture. So policies and procedures that we recommend for in-person. We also have some online stuff as well that we've added because online, especially during COVID, was a big deal with Zoom calls, and some people are still doing Zoom and online. And then text messages in the last couple of years have gotten very, very popular, and a lot of people are communicating through text messages too. So clubs and district policies and procedures should cover a volunteer application and screening procedures. So this is one thing that we implemented in our club a couple of years ago, and it really does make a difference. It's amazing how you can weed out some people when you start asking them just a couple of questions. And so we found a short, maybe a volunteer application, name, who you were invited, who invited you to come, what your goal, what your role is in the organization, what you hope to accomplish. A couple questions. When you start asking for people's name and phone number, and if they are up to no good, they tend not to want to provide that to you, or they won't come, or they'll say, oh, I don't want to fill this out. This isn't for me. This opportunity is not for me. I'm going to leave. All of our volunteer opportunities are not for everyone, but that's fine. It's a screening process for us. Okay. Also, giving your volunteers job descriptions and a list of the responsibilities. So this helps a lot in the organizational structure. And then when you have your Rotarians that are overseeing certain areas of your volunteer opportunities, maybe events that you guys are running, maybe somebody's running parking, maybe somebody's running ticket sales, maybe somebody's running, the concession stands, who knows what you guys could be doing. But when you have a job description, it's good because then people know what they're supposed to be doing. It keeps them in their lane. And then if somebody's not following what they're supposed to be doing, that they're possibly up to no good. Okay. Then setting standards in your club for the ratio of adults to minors needed for supervision. For example, maybe one adult for every 10 minors. And so that sounds, maybe like a ratio that's like, oh, we're going to have too many adults and not enough kids or something of that nature. But as you know, things move very fast and kids never stay still. Youth, tend to move around a lot. And so if you're in charge of 10 kids, that's a lot, And so let's say you have an event with an interact group or maybe some kind of a camp or something, or maybe a bicycle day, and you have 50, 60 kids there. Well, if you try to send one or two Rotarians to watch over them, you may miss something. And then they know, oh, there's not a lot of supervision. So we can do, something that's not necessarily okay either. So always have as many people as you can, but maybe set a ratio of 1 to 10, 1 to 12, maybe 1 to 8, depending on what you guys are doing. Example of this may be like when we go to RILA or Pride, you get a group of kids and they try not to make it more than 10 because then it gets a little more difficult to manage. But 8 is kind of ideal. You can kind of see what's going on and interact with all of them. So having a crisis management, the next one's crisis management procedures that include how to handle medical and other emergencies and how to communicate with the parents and legal guardians. So this is something we recommend implementing ahead of time, right? So if you have a plan in place and you guys have a strategic plan or policies and procedures, then it's going to help you when the time comes that you need it. If you don't have a plan in place, people may scramble, people may not know what to do. You may give mixed messages. You guys might freeze, you have the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in your brain. And so if you already have a plan and you have talked about it, hey, okay, let's say, for instance, you have an event and you guys are serving food, let's say, and you say, okay, what's going to happen if somebody gets sick? What are we going to do? Well, if nobody knows and you just let the person stay there and be sick, instead of taking them off to the side, having them lay down, putting a cold cloth on their head, raising their feet, having a plan in place, it's going to go a lot more smoothly. And you're going to have policies and procedures in place, and then you're actually going to know what you're doing when something happens. Also knowing if medical aid is needed, what your options are, whether you call 911, whether you take them to a local ER, whether you take them to a local hospital. Just knowing and having a plan, thinking of worst case scenario and having a plan for it, just in case it does happen, is always a good thing. And so it's not just medical emergencies. It could be anything from youth protection issues, people showing up that are unwanted. There's a lot of different things, but having these policies in place ahead of time is good. Written guidelines. The next one is written guidelines, consistent with Rotary's policies on reporting and following up on allocations of incidences. So we're going to go over that in a little bit later. But again, if you are familiar with the Rotary policies and procedures, then you're going to know how to do that if it does arise. I hope it never arises for you, but if it does arise. Okay. So what we need to do to protect the youth and ourselves for activities that involve overnight stays or travel outside of the local community, clubs, or district. Okay. And so the thing that I want to reiterate in that statement is protecting the youth and protecting ourselves. So this youth protection is not just to protect the youth, even though that's what it says. It's also to protect us as Rotarians in regards of something that could possibly happen. And you never know nowadays with the way social media works, with the way that all these fancy apps work. I don't even know the names of all of them, but maybe TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat, or for the older people, Facebook, things of that nature. It's a he said, she said game. And once it's out there, it's, it runs. It's like a wildfire. So we want to make sure we're doing things to protect ourselves as well as the young people, and not doing things to protect ourselves, such as, things that we're going to talk about that are inappropriate behaviors, because they could be misconstrued. They could absolutely just be wrong to do, and you don't want that to affect us as Rotarians. And then we also have to look out for the Rotary name itself as well. So those are all things that we're looking to protect, not just the youth. So overnight, obtaining written permission in advance from parents and guardians of all participants. You always want to make sure that you keep the parents and or guardians informed what's going on, giving them all the details as much as possible. So give parents and legal guardians before departure. Don't wait until you're on your way wherever you're going, or once you get there. I always recommend having a meeting ahead of time, explaining what's going to happen, explaining what's going to, how it's going to go, and then explaining the return procedure as well. So before you depart, give the details about the trip or activity, include the travel itineraries, sleeping accommodations, and contact information for the program's organizers. And so again, one of the overnight things that we do that's huge in our district is both Pride and RILA. And so hopefully you guys are providing an informative information session for your parents of the kids that you select to go to camp, whether it be Zoom or a pizza party or things of that nature. Our club, we usually have a pizza party, and we lay out all the guidelines of, okay, we're leaving. Your child's going to get on the bus Friday morning. They're going to come up to camp. They're going to be put in a group with 8 to 10 kids, both males and females. At night, they will be sleeping with either males. Males are on one side of camp, females are on the other side of camp, and they will be sleeping separate. And then during the day, they will be together. And then they will be departing the mountain around 4 to 5 o'clock p.m. And you should anticipate seeing them around 6:30, 7 o'clock. They will have access to their phones on the way down, so you guys can coordinate times. Here are the numbers for the camp. The cell phone service is not very good, so here are the numbers for the people in charge of camp that are with Rotary. But if you cannot get a hold of us, here's the landline information for camp. And that usually makes parents feel a lot better when they understand, okay, this is where my child's going. This is the address of where they're going. These are the people in charge. They're willing to sit down and talk to me about it. It makes me feel a little bit better. People want information. I'm the same way. I always want as much information as possible. And you feel better about the situation if you know about it. So the last one on here is requiring the parent or legal guardian of each minor to provide travel insurance for the minor if they're traveling more than 150 miles away. This comes into play mostly when you have an exchange student. They're going a lot further most of the time than 150 miles away, but it's one of those Rotary policies that you want to make sure you put in place. So if you come across that, then you may need to provide, the family may need to provide travel insurance. Okay. Marilyn, do we have any questions? Anybody have any questions at this point?
Not so far that you haven't answered.
All right, perfect. All right, so now we're going to talk about types of abuse. So this is the part that gets a little bit more in depth, and it gets a little sensitive. So I don't want to trigger anybody. So if you need to mute, if any of these things are triggering you, if you need to step away, I just want to make that disclaimer. But we will be talking about different types of abuse and harassment. We're not going to get into a ton of depth on them. There's a lot of different things that are considered abuse and harassment. So these are just some of them. So abuse and harassment include, but are not limited to, sexual assault, coercion, stalking, indecent exposure, degrading sexual imagery, voyeurism, cyber harassment, which has gotten huge, trafficking and sexual exploitation. Other types of abuse: physical harassment, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, bullying and cyberbullying, discrimination, and neglect. These are the big topics around the world. A lot of these have become very prevalent and top of mind the last couple of years, both with the internet and with COVID and with a lot of the Zoom going on. Unfortunately, schools have seen a huge increase in bullying, and I know that's one of Rudy's passions, is the bullying aspect of it, and cyberbullying, and just kids are and can be ruthless. So I just am shocked at some of the stories that I hear, but all of these are different kinds of abuse. So it's not just somebody hits somebody else. It's not just somebody sexually abuses somebody else. It's not, there's a lot of different things that are abuse and are classified as abuse. And we do not stand for any of them, any or all of them. We do not stand for. So recognizing different signs of abuse or harassment may include physical changes in a young person. They may start dressing differently. They may start changing their hygiene. They may start wearing clothes that they weren't wearing before. They may start drawing attention to themselves. Anxiety, depression, or withdrawal are signs of possible harassment or abuse. Unfortunately, this comes a lot from the mental side of it, and it's a growing epidemic, and it's not good. So at the school, delinquency or age inappropriate behavior, that may look like, the age inappropriate behavior may look like drinking. Young age, some of the kids start drinking and they're trying to numb themselves, which isn't good. Use of drugs, just a lot of different age inappropriate behaviors. And then aggression. And I'm not saying that everyone that's mad and that's aggressive has been abused or harassed, but sometimes it shows up that way. And so these are things to look for, that maybe you've known somebody for a little while and these weren't common traits, and now you start seeing these signs. So it's something that could possibly be rising up from being abused or harassed. So the signs of abuse or harassment are not always easy to recognize. Often young people tell you that something is wrong only through changes in their behavior, not through their words. So what seems like typical adolescent behavior or a young person being difficult could indicate that they have been or experienced abuse, either as an adult or by an adult or by a peer. So that's one thing that I want to make sure we talk about too, is abuse doesn't always have to come from an adult. Abuse or harassment, I'm not talking about always Rotarians and a youth person. So sometimes it comes from amongst themselves. And so if you're running events or you have an Interact club or you are interacting with kids through the Rotary organization or just in any organization, really, you have to watch for these kids abusing other kids too. And so it's one of those things where unfortunately it happens. And some kids are more assertive and aggressive than others, but sometimes it happens subtly too. And sometimes it happens behind the scenes. And then you may see after effects or side effects of that when you see them or when you interact with them. So as a district and as a club, we have certain responsibilities in regards to addressing the abuse and harassment. So overall, in a Rotary club, the Rotary Club presidents have responsibility for operating and coordinating the club's youth activities with the support of club committee members. So you may have a youth services chair in your club. If you are the president, you are supposed to oversee everything that happens in your club. So you hopefully know what's going on and you are involved at some level. And it's not just, oh, I don't handle that side of it. So-and-so handles that side of it. And so the more people that are involved, the less likely something will be to happen. Not that it won't happen, but the more people that are involved and the less people that, turn a blind eye to it, the better off we'll be for reporting guidelines and for overseeing and double checking everybody. So at the district level, district chairs should coordinate their efforts to raise awareness of youth safety issues and work together to develop and implement youth protection policies and ensure that all clubs follow them. So that's what we're doing here today. So I appreciate everyone that has shown up today, and hopefully go back and pass this on to your clubs. Also, if you want me to come out and speak to your club, I can do that as well. So the district governor overall has control and supervision of all the district programs, including all youth programs and activities. So given the sensitive nature of the youth programs, we encourage the governors to use the period between being nominated and taking office to learn as much as possible about their district's youth programs. Okay, so this is the time that usually we have 3 years of the governor line that we know that's going to be in place. And hopefully they start getting involved with all the different activities, whether it's Interact clubs or RILA or Pride or anything that we do with the kids. And they know, okay, these are the different activities we're doing. These are, this is what we're promoting, and it's a safe environment and it's good for everyone involved. So it's the governor's job to make sure that we do enforce anything that needs to be enforced as far as youth protection policies go. And it's their job to appoint somebody if they need to in regards to a specific situation. They don't handle it themselves. So that is the responsibilities of our clubs and our district in regards to youth protection policies. All right, so talking about appropriate and inappropriate behavior, everyone needs to understand the difference between appropriate and inappropriate interactions. Okay, this will help you recognize behaviors that might indicate intent to abuse a child. A shared understanding of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate may prevent abuse. It may even prevent false allegations. And so this is the thing that I want to focus on is false allegations, because you or somebody that's in your club or somebody that's involved in the volunteer portion of it may have good intentions, but they may not understand what's appropriate or inappropriate. Okay. So a typical abuser cannot be identified by their age, their economic status, community standing, race, gender, or intelligence. I know some people might think, oh, it's the old creepy white guy. Well, it's not always the old creepy white guy. It's not the guy with the longest beard in the room either. I will just say that. So abusers can be people that these kids know well. And so it may be somebody that, let's say they've been an Interact advisor for 10 years or 15 years. That doesn't mean that that person's immune to causing harm to these kids either. They can be respected members of the community who use their status to manipulate others and protect themselves from accusations. Young people are often abused or harassed by people they know or people in positions of authority. I know that's sad to say, but it's very true. Okay. So, appropriate and inappropriate interactions. Okay. These are physical interactions. And so, these appropriate interactions, if culturally appropriate and with consent. So even if we consider them appropriate, there's also other caveats. So if you're going to engage with a child, a hug from the side like this would be considered appropriate if it's okay with their consent. Okay. So you may be with a child, let's say that they're struggling emotionally and maybe they're a little upset. My first reaction to that is let the kids console each other. If you're at camp or you're at an event and somebody gets upset, there's other people there. If one of the younger people want to console one of their classmates or teammates or whatever it may be, let them do it, because then you're out of it and you're safe, right? But let's say nobody's around and you need to give them a little encouragement, you can side hug, right? And so patting them on the shoulder or the back, shaking hands, okay? Small gestures of approval, such as clapping, may be appropriate, okay? Unfortunately, the list of unacceptable physical interactions with or without consent. So hugging, full body hug, right? Embracing this way, holding them for, giving them a hug. You open yourself up for a lot of different interpretations of that. We don't recommend it. Will it happen sometimes? I'm not saying it won't happen, okay? But if it does happen, don't hold on for too long. Don't engage it. You don't start it. If they ask you for a hug, then you can give them a hug. Recommend from the side, but if for some reason it ends up being a full hug, make it quick. Don't make it awkward, and just move on. But don't encourage it, okay? Kissing of any kind, kissing on the forehead, kissing on the hand, obviously kissing on the lips. Don't do it. Stay away from it. It's just easier that way. Showing physical expressions of affection. Nope, can't do it. Don't do it. Don't hold hands with anybody. I know things happen. Sometimes people are really good friends. Just don't put yourself in that position. Sitting on someone's lap. Hopefully everyone understands that's not appropriate, okay? Wrestling, it's not our job to be friends necessarily and wrestle with these kids. Don't do it. Carrying someone on your back or shoulders, we don't recommend it. Don't do it. Hands end up places that somebody else might get offended. Other people may see it and misinterpret it. Tickling, same thing. Giving massages, just stay away from it. It could end up either being, unwanted, inappropriate, misconstrued. It's just don't do it, right? And then offering any form of physical affection that is unwanted, it's just stay away from it. Don't do it. Obviously, this is something that needs to be said, which I don't know why it needs to be said, but I'm assuming it has happened. I'm sure it's happened. Touching people's bottoms, waists, chests, or genital areas. I know that this is really popular in some sports. They like to smack each other on the butt. Don't do it. Stay away from it. And then making any kind of sexual contact of any kind. Not appropriate. Okay. So verbal interactions, acceptable verbal interactions, positive reinforcement, definitely something that's okay. Encouragement and praise, 100%. You're not going to, get in trouble for that. Again, the list of unacceptable stuff that happens that we do not want to see. And this is, again, by Rotarians and by the youth, okay? So calling people names, not acceptable, okay? Adults discussing sexual encounters on their personal problems with youth participants. I say don't even talk to anybody about that when you're at a Rotary program. I don't even recommend you do it in public at all. Maybe with a family member, maybe with a spouse, at home, behind closed doors. Just don't do it. So adults asking youth to keep secrets of any kind. It doesn't have to be anything regarding sexual, emotional abuse, harassment. Just if you ask them to keep a secret, it is inappropriate. You do not want to put yourself in that position. You do not want to put them in that position. And you definitely don't want to put Rotary in that position. Okay. Using curse words, cursing and cussing, not acceptable. Doesn't need to happen. Don't do it. Jokes. This actually used to say no inappropriate jokes. I changed it to jokes because jokes don't always land properly, and or somebody may be offended by your jokes. If they want to tell jokes to each other and they're clean jokes, that may be one thing. You let them, amongst themselves. But in my experience, very few times do they have clean jokes that don't offend anybody. So just don't do it. Shaming or belittling someone, that's not good in your everyday life. I hope you don't do it to the kids. Harsh language that may frighten, threaten, or humiliate youth, don't do it. Don't allow it to happen if they're talking amongst themselves. Remember, positive reinforcement and encouragement goes a long way. Okay, making negative remarks about a participant or their family, culture, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, or background. No negative remarks, okay? And this we've come across a lot with COVID and COVID-related issues. People wearing masks versus not wearing masks, people that are vaccinated versus not vaccinated. Everyone has a right to do them. Let them do them. They do not. It is not your place, nor do we condone any kind of negative remarks, okay? And then commenting on or complimenting a person's body or body development. Please do not do this. Fast track to abuse and making people uncomfortable is getting involved and commenting on somebody's body. Just don't do it. It's not good. So pass these on to your members, but also if you have an Interact club, I think this is a good maybe first meeting, second meeting when you guys have your first, at the beginning of the year when you guys set up your Interact club, lay down the ground rules. Tell them what you expect. Tell them what's acceptable. Tell them what's not acceptable. And my theory is similar to giving somebody a job description. You then have something to hold them accountable to. So, all right. So electronic and online interactions, communicating with people by text message, emails, social media, commenting on posts, Zoom, or personal phone presents new challenges on keeping participants safe. Many youth serving organizations prohibit private texting or online conversations between adults and youth. They require the adult to copy another volunteer on such communications, okay? So highly, highly recommend this. Guidelines for electronic communication with the participant. Copy or include another volunteer or the participant's parent or guardian, okay? And I really like that because then they know, the parent knows, okay, this person's interacting with me and the child, and so we're all on the same page. Sometimes these kids do not talk to their parents. They don't tell them what's going on. And so this way the parent feels comfortable. They know that you're not trying to do anything sneaky. One thing that you can also do that we recommend is doing group conversations. Michelle Munoz and I are both in charge of the alumni for RILA. And so we have a group me. And so everybody's in the group me. And so when you put something in there, everybody sees it and you're not, having secret conversations. And there's nothing suspicious going on. So communicate with multiple participants in a closed group or use website or social media page that are not visible to the public, okay? So You may say, you guys may have your own group chat, you may have your own Facebook Messenger going, but include multiple people. The more people you have, the more people can vouch for each other, the more eyes are on it, the safer it's going to be. Okay. So counselors, advisors, and host parents might be allowed to exchange messages with participants without supervision if they have the prior approval of the program's leadership. Okay. So always recommend you get approval. I don't recommend it for too many people, just because you always want to stay safe as far as your interactions. So what to avoid in electronic communication, a lot of it's very similar to the in-person interactions, but no harsh, coercive, threatening, intimidating, derogatory, or humiliating comments, no sexual conversations or images. Always be aware of your background. So you may, let's say, for instance, you're not trying to say anything provocative, nothing like that, but let's say you have a poster in the background and it has, I don't even know if this is a thing anymore, but let's say it's, Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition calendar behind you. Well, that may be offensive to some people. So always be aware of your background. Make sure it's plain, make sure that it's appropriate, picture, something of that nature. So no private messages between a volunteer and the youth without prior approval. So don't send people messages without them knowing. Maybe talk to them on the phone, maybe you see them and say, hey, is it okay if I text you? And if they say yes, then that's fine, but you don't want to, again, do it without prior permission. It is very weird, and I've had several students comment to me, oh yeah, so-and-so just, text me out of nowhere, and they wanted to know if I was coming here, or they wanted to know if I was able to attend X, Y, and Z. Call the person on the phone. Don't just send them text messages without their approval. They can choose to answer the phone or not answer the phone. So posting pictures of youth participants on social media without parental consent. So that is one thing that we see a lot. I recommend, if you have an Interact club, have a photo disclosure go out at the beginning of the year, have it signed, keep it on file. And what that says is, hey, your parents are acknowledging, because the parents have to sign it if they're under 18, or if they're over 18, they can sign it. And that's just saying I can use, to promote on Interact pages, or in Rotary, we can promote and use your picture. Otherwise, you want to make sure you're taking pictures from afar, so you cannot recognize the people's faces. You don't want them to be recognizable. And or we recommend taking pictures from behind, maybe like if you're in a group, from behind them, and then looking at whatever they're doing, and so that they are not recognizable. But if you have an event, I recommend that you do get a photo disclosure. Especially nowadays, people have all kinds of requirements and restrictions, and our Rotary Club does an event with a foster care system, and some of them are not allowed to be photoed and some of them are. And so what they do is they have different color name tags, and if they have a red name tag, you can photo them. If they have a blue name tag, you can't. And so we know which ones we can take pictures of and which ones you can't. And so it just makes it real easy to do that. But always make sure you have parental consent, or if they're over 18, they can sign. But if you have one as you enter an event, or as they sign up online, if you have online sign up, then they can always do that. So make sure you're not posting any appropriate comments or pictures online either. Okay. So addressing inappropriate behavior, you want to address the first signs of inappropriate behavior, right? Regardless of your role, always address it. It's one of those things, address it with the person first that you think is conducting this behavior. Always go straight to the source. Don't run and tell somebody else. Just say, hey, I think that's inappropriate. If something happens and it becomes an issue and it is confirmed, you may need to contact Rotary International. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Make sure you review district records to determine if somebody has a pattern. If you think that there's somebody that may be doing things that are not appropriate, and you've heard maybe through the rumor mill that this person's been in trouble before for doing inappropriate stuff, you can always contact me, and I can tell you I can tell you right now that we have nobody that's in our Rotary district that is on the watch list. Everyone, if something has happened, they have been removed from Rotary or removed themselves. Yes, unfortunately, in the last 10 years, we have had several people leave Rotary because they've done inappropriate things. And so it happens. So reiterate your expectations. Always reiterate your expectations, because then people aren't surprised when you say, hey, you didn't meet your expectation. Okay. Monitor the person's behavior. Make sure you notify everyone of it. Hey, I have a concern with this person. Keep an eye on them. We want to make sure, I've heard certain things or somebody had a concern, but nothing actually happened. So just want to make sure. If something does happen, make sure you talk with the young person about it and their parent or legal guardian. Again, you can tell I'm a really big advocate of making sure that the parents are informed if anything happens. You do not want to try to cover it up. You do not want to try to say, oh, maybe nobody's going to say anything about it. You do not want to do that. And then if something does happen, you need to report the allegations to law enforcement, and then to Rotary International within 72 hours. So they're not the first call you make. We let law enforcement do their job. It's not our job to be judge and jury. We let the law enforcement take control if we think something has happened or we've been informed of something. All of these inappropriate behaviors lead to or are part of what they consider grooming. Okay, and so grooming is establishing an emotional connection with someone to lower their inhibitions and gain their trust with the intent to be sexually abusive, and this should actually say be abusive or harassment in general. These are all considered grooming. People with harmful intent use these actions to gain someone's trust, to win their confidence, or convince young people that they truly care about them. Over time, abusers build affection and dependence to make the young person believe they're a willing participant in the abusive, inappropriate behavior. And it's so sad to hear of situations when something has happened, especially sexual abuse, and the person says, well, I was willing, I didn't say no, and so I'm part of the problem. It's not, that is absolutely not the case, but that's what they're made to feel. Okay. So in summary, you want to address the signs of the inappropriate behavior. Contact Rotary International if you have any questions, or you can contact me. Review your district records to determine if there's a pattern. Reiterate your expectations. Remember, always lay your expectations out. Monitor the person's behavior. Talk with the young people and their parents if something does happen, and then report the allegations of abuse. So how do you report the allegations of abuse? You're going to first receive the report. Okay, and so when you receive the report, you want to make sure you put this person in a safe space, and you want to ask them questions that are factual questions. You're not digging. You don't want to find out the whole scoop and the whole story and the backstory. You want to get the information, but establish the facts. Okay, remember, this can be very traumatizing for the person that it's happened to. So we don't want to traumatize them by asking them a million questions. We want to find out the overview of what happened and the issue if something has happened. And then from there, you want to report it to the proper authorities. So you want to make sure that the young person is safe, remove them from contact with the person whose behavior is in question, relocate them to a safe environment, provide professional services if needed. Okay, so if they need a counselor, provide that to them. If they need something, let's say it was a sexual abuse encounter, they may need to go to the hospital. They may need an advocate that the hospital could possibly provide, or maybe you have resources. I have resources if you need them. So if you need those, then we could do that. If it's emotional, they may need some counseling, like we said. Monitor them for physical and emotional stress. Okay. Then you want to remove the accused person from all activities. Make sure that they are removed and explain to them that there is going to be further evaluation and investigation, and they are no longer allowed to participate at this point in time. So if something has happened, you think that something is of importance to let the police know about it, again, let the police do their job and do the investigation. Okay, so whether you think it's appropriate or not, if it's abuse of any kind, if it's something that you feel questionable about, let them do their job. Okay, it's not our job, again, to be judge and jury. We just say this incident has happened. Be prepared to give a report, because they're going to ask you for questions in regards to what happened. Hopefully you're never in this position, but if you are, make sure you report it to law enforcement, and you're going to want to follow up. Okay. And then within 72 hours, the policy is you have to report it to Rotary International. They have an incident report form, and you can fill it out. I will tell you that they are very active in following up on these situations, but they are not intrusive to the point where they want to tell you how to do it and what to do. They just want to make sure that we are doing something if it needs to be done. Okay. So following up and implementing safeguards. So implementing and enforcing prohibitions during the investigation. Make sure the person accused of the wrongdoing is not in contact with young people. We talked about that. Leaders of the club and the district that are involved should be told about the prohibition so it can be enforced. Okay. If something does come of the incident and the person is accused or the person is found guilty, the club must terminate the membership of that person who admits to, is convicted of, or is otherwise known to have engaged in any sexual abuse or harassment of a young person or youth protection participants. Okay. So I will tell you this, the several incidences that I've been involved with, the person has removed themselves. We didn't need to remove them as a club. And then they are put on a ban list from Rotary. I will say that they're not allowed to join Rotary. It goes to Rotary International. They can't move and go back into Rotary. That's the important thing that we need to make sure is they don't leave and go somewhere else and do something again. Okay. So they are banned from Rotary. They are on a what they consider a no-fly list. So just a heads up, that's how that works. Then you want to put any safeguards in place that are necessary, maybe that you didn't have in place before. Sometimes things happen and it's no fault of anybody's, it just happened. But always make sure you review your strategies and your plans, okay? And then maintain confidential records. That's my job, to maintain confidential records. And so we do that on my side, okay? So in summary, you want to take these steps and follow up on the confirmed issue by law enforcement, implement and enforce prohibitions, terminate the person's membership, determine what safeguards are necessary if you need to add them, and then maintain confidential records. Okay. So handling media, I know we're coming up on our 7 o'clock hour, so we'll go through our last couple slides. Handling media, always recommend the fact that you do not need to make a comment to the media. So you can always say no comment. Easiest thing, best thing to do, keeps you out of it. It's not a he said, she said situation. If it requires media attention, we recommend first contact the district. They may have a representative that will be the spokesperson. They may recommend you have a person, but we recommend overall that that person gets coached by Rotary International. Okay. And it's not to say that people aren't good speakers. It's not to say that we're afraid to talk to people. And it's not to say that, you know, we did nothing wrong. You just never know how the media is going to spin it. You never know how it's going to be perceived. And you want to make sure that you have a united front and you don't just run out and speak to the media, write a press release. If something happens in your club, please run it up the flagpole, because we want to make sure we're all on the same page. We're relaying the same message, and that we are making sure that everyone is safe involved. Okay. So protecting the young people is everyone's responsibility. Making sure you're creating a safe environment for youth and members by revisiting this training, which you guys are doing. I greatly appreciate that. Sharing this training and resources with other club members and district members and leaders. Talking with clubs and district leaders about your youth protection policy for your club, because you can have one specifically for your club. And then creating a committee or instituting a process to address any issues that arise, allegations that may happen, having a plan in place ahead of time is really, really key. And it'll make it a lot smoother if something ever happens, okay? And then making it clear to all your members that the safety and well-being of young people and our members of Rotary is your highest priority, okay? So there's a list of resources here that I can provide to you if you need them. Rotary.org has a learning institute that is absolutely amazing. So if you guys haven't spent any time on there, I could literally get a PhD in all the stuff that they put on there. Ton of information, ton of different languages. I highly recommend if you're looking for any deeper information, you can go on there. There's a ton of stuff on there. You can always reach out to Rotary International. This is their website, or their email, youthprotection@rotary.org. Okay. And then this is my information. So again, phone number, email, contact me. Any way that I can help you. That was my pre-COVID beard. This is my new COVID beard. So, all right. I want to go ahead and minimize this. I'll put my phone number in the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Chris.
All right, Matthew, I will say I've done this a lot of different training, life scan, and a lot of for different entities, church, schools. I will tell you by far, this was well delivered, well presented. You covered a lot of bases, and I want to say, Matt, let's give it up to him. I'm going to tell you, thank you. You can see the energy, passion that you have, and how seriously you take this. And I have kids, you know, I have a lot of kids, and I want to make sure my kids are protected when they go to camp, when they're going to these different places, that the adults are live scanned and that the protocols and procedures are in place. So you covered it well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Michelle had a question. Am I available for lunch meetings in person or in Zoom? I'm available for either. My schedule runs usually about 2 weeks out. But other than that, if we schedule something ahead of time, then yeah, I'm willing to come in person. Like Chris said, it's definitely a passion of mine, and Zoom does work, but I'm a big component of interaction and people. And so I'll do either. Whatever I can do to support you, just let me know.
Several people asked in the chat room for copies of your PowerPoint slide, and I've sent it to them already. But if you didn't put it in the chat, if you will do that before we end the meeting, I'll be happy to send you the PowerPoint slides. And then you can also have all of Matt's contact information to schedule him at your club. Other
Well
comments?
done, Matt. Well done, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
This is great. You're so thorough, and I've heard your presentation before, and about halfway through, I'm thinking, I'm not sure I ever want to have contact with kids again. And then you go through how you handle things and what you do and don't do. And so that's like the frosting on the cake.
Yeah, I love kids. I love interacting with them. But it's a slippery slope sometimes. And everyone, you know, you just gotta be careful and pick and choose your words wisely, and or don't say anything at all sometimes. But
Yeah.
Kids are great, and they're our future, so we got to support them.
And you got to protect them. Yep. Any other questions or comments before we wrap this up? Matt, you did a terrific job. Thank you so much for taking the time with us this evening. And those of you who joined us to participate in this, you came away with a wealth of information. I will be sending out the YouTube video link as soon as it's ready. It will include Matt's comments as well as the PowerPoints. But if you want the PowerPoints separately, just let me know. Okay, with that, I don't see any more hands or questions. We'll go ahead and wrap this session up. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thank you for attending.
Bye-bye.
Bye.